hour as well to get into everything that's surrounding Deshaun Watson and all the accusations against the Texans star quarterback. But Maggie, you got to begin with a little NBA because the NBA trade deadline is tomorrow, 3 o'clock Eastern time. The Knicks last night, Madison Square Garden, took it to the Washington Wizards, win that game going away by 18. I know the minutes police were out on Julius Randle late in the game, and people were hitting social media, getting all hot and bothered that Randle was on the court when the Knicks were up double digits. And I get it. I understand he played 38 minutes.
It wasn't just double digits. It was 25 points.
I understand, but still, the minutes police, you can never deny the minutes police.
I'm the sheriff of the minutes police,
social media.
You're talking to her.
I know. It wasn't just you. It was just everybody. It was me. It was like Tom Thibodeau. It was like Tom Thibodeau was spitting in the eye of the NBA that Julius Randle was back on the court. But
put cuffs on him and throw him in minutes jail.
Randle was fantastic, 37. I mean, how many accolades can we throw Julius's way? 7 threes they hit over the course of the game. Bullock chipping in, hitting a couple of threes as well. Reggie, you look at R.J. Barrett doing his thing. The Knicks get themselves back to the 500 mark. They're 22-22 on the season. I mean, how many times can you extol the virtues of Julius Randle? He's been great. He's been fantastic. He's a star. He's a foundational piece for this Knicks franchise. You hope that he's here for the long term, and he wants to be here for the long term. So all the accolades that go Randle's way are all well deserved, and last night was fantastic. But tomorrow's the NBA trade deadline. So you look at this Knicks team and you say, all right, well, what are Leon Rose, Worldwide West? What is the brain trust? Throw Thibodeau into the mix. What exactly are they going to do, or what should they do come tomorrow afternoon, Maggie? And it's interesting because we all agree the Knicks need to be reinforced. I don't think there's anybody that looks at them and says this is a complete product. It's not. They're not an upper echelon team in the Eastern Conference. They're battling for a playoff spot. This year has been fantastic to watch. The win total before the start of the year was 22.5 games, and they're 22-22 through 44. The one thing I'd say is this, though, is be smart. All right? Don't chase a ghost. The Knicks, there's nothing the Knicks are going to do that's going to put them into a position where they're a top 3 seed. They're never going to be Milwaukee this year. They're never going to be Philadelphia this year, who won in Golden State last night, and they're never going to be the Brooklyn Nets this year. That's not going to happen. Now, can they do something where they're the 4 or the 5 seed? Yeah, I'd be all for it, but be smart. If you're going to go add a player, be smart about it, because you don't want to strengthen the team this year, but it inhibits you what you can do in the future, or hurts what you can do this offseason, what you can do in the NBA draft. Don't go make a stupid move in what has been a really good season. That would be my message to Leon Rose. Don't be stupid by tomorrow afternoon at 3 o'clock.
This is your Knicks scar tissue talking. Like, you've had to surround yourself and fortify yourself because you've been hurt so many times before. This is not Isaiah Thomas running the guard.
There is a wall. I'll agree to that. There is a wall.
This is not Isaiah Thomas.
There is an emotional wall. Protect me, Maggie.
This is not, Steve Mills is gone. I mean, Perry's still there, but he's kind of in the background. This is not that same type of front office. I think we have to let ourselves finally look at what this current front office has done and say, listen, on balance, they've done a lot more good than they've done bad. They actually have made a lot of smart moves. Now, unfortunately, Obi Toppin has had a tough time adjusting to the NBA game, but I think you counterbalance that with how good Emmanuel Quickley has been, and you say, you'll take that draft right now. And Toppin could end up being a great player. It's just been a tough adjustment for him. They've been smart this whole time. So I don't think that all of a sudden at the trade deadline, they're going to lose their way and all of a sudden you're signing Eddie Curry to $50 million guaranteed. Like, it's not that regime, Moose. You don't have to worry about that anymore. There seems like there is logic. The one thing I'm very curious about, first of all, I'd be shocked if they don't do anything by tomorrow, because the Knicks have so many different ways that they can be players at this deadline, right? Whether it's just adding a rental, whether it's being part of a bigger, maybe 3 or 4 team deal that gets someone somewhere else. The fact that they have $15 million in cap space, you could take on a bad contract and get draft picks if you wanted to. Like, there's a million ways that the Knicks can be factors here by tomorrow. And, I wonder, we go back to the piece written by Yaron Weitzman, who came on with us, and it was really the first kind of deep dive into what it's really like in the front office for the Knicks. And you kind of got a sense that there is a split at times between what Leon Rose, Worldwide West, and Brock Aller want to do and what Tom Thibodeau wants to do. And honestly, you'd expect that because the coach wants to win every single night. We saw it last night with Randle getting put back in the game. which was insane. I know I am the minutes police, but that was still crazy. You have to be able to close out a bad team if you're up 25 with 7 minutes left to go in the game. But anyway.
In Thibodeau, I trust.
Thibodeau, and put RJ back into it, but is Thibodeau going to be so fighting tooth and nail? Is he going to win out and say, even if it's a rental, even if it's short term, we must have something and we must get help? Or is the front office going to say, we have $15 million in cap space. We could take on a bad contract. We could get better assets here and better position ourselves for next season. That's what I'm really curious about. And let's be honest, you mentioned it about the 4-5. If the Knicks could get themselves to the 4th or 5th seed, that changes everything. And you want to know what's been so important for the Knicks this year? Changing everything. The perception of the Knicks has got to change, and I think amongst players in the league, it's one thing to make the play-in game. It's one thing to be the 7-8 seed. It's one thing to go in and have the pleasure of getting your ass kicked by a top seed, right, or gentleman's sweep or whatever you want to say. It's quite another, and the Knicks so far have done a really good job of changing the perception of the Garden in this short amount of time. And the Knicks, really, not so much the Garden, but the Knicks. How much does that even get bolstered? If somehow you can hang on to the 4th or 5th seed, that's a winnable series. Now all of a sudden you're winning a playoff series, and what message does that send to the rest of the NBA? It's important,
I understand,
man.
but I listen. I don't think there's. I think there's value, obviously, in winning a playoff series if you can get to the 4 or the 5. But you have also. I mean, Atlanta's hot as a firecracker. You look at the Miami Heat; they're going to probably try and do something before tomorrow's NBA trade deadline. You've got the Boston Celtics. I mean, the Heat were in the NBA Finals down the bubble last year in Orlando, but. I look at it, and maybe it is the scar tissue from years gone by.
You're hurt.
Listen, and I think I have every right to have that scar tissue of watching this team make one blunderous move after another, being critical of them, and then Knick fans, being angry, saying, "Well, why aren't you all in?" Well, I'd like to have an organization run precisely, smartly, have a game plan here. Like, that's what I would like to see. Right. That doesn't hurt themselves, that help themselves. And the Knicks have not done that for the last 20 years. Even with all that, I'm still a fan of the team, and I'm enjoying this year. And I love watching Julius Randle, love watching the development of R.J. Barrett. It was great to see Peyton and Quickly back on the court last night at Madison Square Garden. I don't disagree, Maggie, that I do have a lot more trust in this group, in Rose, Wes, and Thibodeau, and then everybody else that they brought into the organization, throw Perry into the mix as well, than I've had for a Knick brain trust in quite some time. So I do agree with it there. The question, though, is, as we read in that piece, and we had your own on that day that piece came out in the New York Post, is, there is a differentiation of opinion amongst the group about what the game plan should be here. I mean, Tom Thibodeau denies it, but Thibodeau was not an R.J. Barrett fan. Tom Thibodeau was not a, Julius Randle fan. That perception has now changed. He's all in on Randle. I think Randle's perception around the league clearly has changed, Maggie. But to your point, does Thibodeau win out to where you make more of a win-now move where it might hurt what you can do this offseason? That would be how big of a push. Like, that's where you want to be smart with this.
Are in the building?
You want to be smart with this. That's it. I mean, if Kyle Lowry is truly available up in Toronto, and I understand that there's, the Knicks and Philadelphia might be the leading contender for Kyle Lowry, but if Lowry is still available, would that be a guy that you'd be willing to invest in? I don't know if I'm going to outpay Daryl Morey and the Philadelphia 76ers to go get Kyle Lowry. We've talked about Victor Oladipo for weeks. You look at Evan Fournier with Orlando. I mean, the options are out there. Just be smart with it. That's the only thing I stress. Don't go and gamble and put all the chips in the middle of the table for this year, because the Knicks are not winning an NBA title this year. And I'm okay with that. I'm enjoying this year. I enjoy the team. I enjoy the chemistry on this team. They all like one another. They play together. There's no drama. There's no BS. There's no nonsense. That's what I'm enjoying as well, Maggie. I'm enjoying actually just watching basketball and watching this team lead the storyline of being one of these big revelations in the Eastern Conference. And I think they need to be helped. I don't disagree with that. Just be smart if you're going to make a move before tomorrow afternoon's NBA trade deadline.
I'd be curious to know, and we're gonna get a better idea of how many true believers are in the building right now, and I'm talking about for this season. Because if you are a true believer and you do think that the Knicks have a shot at the 4th seed or the 5th seed and a winnable playoff game, which would, again, change the perception
Sure.
about the Knicks even more than
Do you think
it's
it's
already
changed already, though?
I think it has. However, we haven't even gone through a full season, and this isn't even a full season. This is a 72-game season.
Right,
and
I understand. But if they're not a 4 or 5 seed, but they're not in the play-in tournament, right? Say they end up being the 6. If they have that kind of a year, and the Knicks are, don't you think their perception, just like Randall's perception around the league, that the Knicks are a team that is kind of on the rise, that's gonna be relevant, that they're going in the right direction?
Yes, but I think that You've already signaled to some extent that it's safe to come to the Garden. Julius Randle is taking care of that for the Knicks to say it's okay. You can come to the Garden and you can have success here, and it's not going to be torpedoed by all this other ancillary stupid stuff that tends to go on in Madison Square Garden in years past. Bad decisions, boneheaded decisions, bad distractions that come from the front office and above, all of that stuff. So Julius Randle's success, I think, has already signaled, hey, it's safe to come here, superstars, it's all right. But think about, like, guys in the league, I think, understand, too. Like, they understand what the difference is, and it's not going to be, like, records-wide probably much of a difference, but they do get it, I think, between a team that squeaks into the playoffs just to get destroyed by a 1 seed or a 2 seed, and then the teams that are actually winning a playoff series. Like, I do think that matters. I do. I don't know how, I can't put a percentage on it for you, but I do think that it matters. And so the perception and changing everything for this year for the Knicks is paramount. And I think it would go a long way. Again, I'd be shocked if they don't do something because they have so many different ways to go. And oh, by the way, can I add one more thing? This is going to sound short-sighted, but I think it's something that we need to keep in mind. When different players and different professional athletes have gotten COVID, they've obviously responded so differently to it, much like the rest of the population. Derrick Rose was open and honest about how this affected him. He said it was the flu times 10. I mean, this knocked him out. You know, he's been gone almost for the entire month, and I don't know when he's going to play again. He's got to start ramping up now. He was in quarantine, not able to do anything, and it really affected him and his family. We've seen this with other athletes. Cam Newton was one of them. Others. Guys aren't right for like a month after this. We know how important Derrick Rose is. Take yesterday's win aside. Wizards are a terrible team. But we've been talking about these close losses that the Knicks have had recently and how the outcome could have been so different if Derrick Rose had been available and been on the floor. He is so important to what they're doing. If it's going to take him a while to work back into game shape and to really feel quote-unquote normal again after COVID, that could take a while. And I think that while you're saying, Maggie, that's short-sighted, he'll be back, don't worry. I think the Knicks have to be thinking about that. Derrick Rose has already shown how important he is, and recovering from this virus has just been so different for everybody. So he might not be 100% for a long time, a couple weeks. In NBA's time, that's a long time. I think they have to be considering it.
Yeah, I think they factor all of it in, right? So I think that's a fair point when you look at Derrick Rose, and we've been talking about the point guard play even with Derrick Rose pre-COVID of trying to improve it. Now you're looking at a guy that coming off of it, and he was, as you mentioned, it hit him like a Mack truck. Thank God he's going to be okay.
Yeah.
And he'll be back on the NBA court. We'll see when it is, but he's out of the COVID protocols for the Knicks. Now it's a matter of when he will get back on the court and just what he is when he gets back on the court, because we've seen numerous examples. Cam Newton up in New England, Emmanuel Sanders down in New Orleans, of guys that were clearly affected pre-COVID, post-COVID, and what they were on the court or on the field after they were afflicted with coronavirus. So it's a fair point. I want to see the Knicks. Let's see what they do, but we want to hear from you. 877-337-6666. Knicks, get us going early here. What should they do before tomorrow's NBA trade deadline, 3 o'clock Eastern time?
Also, I think the minutes police, we have a real gripe about last night.
Oh,
we've got a serious case.
Oh my God!
Against Thibodeau for last night.
It is like